Welcome. Everything's lined up and functioning. I'm Deeg here on the Deeg Chats podcast, talking to Enders, a
What's
streamer
up?
and Battlefield god. What's up, brother?
I'm chilling. Just ended stream. Just got absolutely shit on, and in internals
You can't
because
get
they're
good if
just
you don't get
sweaty.
shit on.
Exactly. It's
So,
fine.
Enders, I got introduced to you by our mutual friend Lex, aka Milsim Prodigy, aka Hans Boomer Slayer.
Hans Boomer Slayer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I got to know Lex originally when he was shitting on me for my dumb PlanetSide takes. I got to know him. He educated me. And I got kind of introduced to this scene of really sweaty, dedicated shooter players.
Okay.
Originally by the PlanetSide 2 scene, PlanetSide 2 being a game that's kind of like a little brother of Battlefield in some ways, borrows a lot and has some
Yeah.
genre similarities. I got introduced to him, by him to you and your content, and I watched a bunch of your stuff, and I love how you seem to be capturing this desire for people who dedicate themselves to getting good at a video game,
hmm
and particularly Battlefield in your case, and the problems that players who take that challenge seriously face. So I love that. But before we get into the nitty gritty on that, I actually want to back this up and see if I can ask you about how this all got started for you. Streaming, shooters, where does it all come from for you?
Uh Probably starts with, well, when did I really start to get into it with streaming and all that, or like what's the first shooter game I played? And
What's the story? How were you introduced to shooters?
oh man, gotta be my dad for sure. I played my first FPS game is probably the original Half-Life on the PlayStation 2. But my first game was probably Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis.
Word.
So I mean, we're talking like I'm like 4.
Yeah.
So
Word.
definitely my dad introduced me to FPS games. I would watch my dad play the original Half-Life. He played Unreal Tournament a lot. Unreal Tournament 2004.
Hell yes.
Quake. The real old stuff.
The original
that you
arena
don't see much.
shooters.
Yeah, the original arena shooters. Then he would play a lot of just single player games like the original Crisis. So that's how I really got introduced to it all.
Okay. Okay. So like father, like son, dad's a gamer.
Yes. He still plays.
Is he really focused? Is he a big skills guy? Does he care about being good? Is that
No.
also no, huh?
No, he's not. I mean, he plays with laptop speakers on a laptop. Ultra graphics, Battlefield 1. He's not. Hey, he is still pretty good though. Honestly, like he kills him a little bit, but it's what you would kind of expect from. He's like 56, so
Well done, Dad.
he does what he can.
Yeah, man, boomer gaming. As long as it floats his boat, that's brilliant. So, okay, you get the shooter bug from Dad, and so where does streaming content creation start for you? Where'd you get the bug? How'd you get inspired to show up and start being on camera?
I played. So I started watching. I've been watching Twitch for a long time. I mean,
Word.
I could go grab it. I mean, I have merch from like 2015, Tim the Tap Man. Like I watched streams a lot. I didn't start watching Battlefield streams until maybe like the start of 2018. I started watching someone called Zarianna. A lot of people in the chat will know who Zarianna is.
Okay.
Zarianna plays, and I watched a guy named Killer Ninja 51. If you know him, those are the two guys that introduced me to Battlefield streams.
Okay.
I was always in to Battlefield games, but I never jumped like real into them.
Sure.
Until I started watching them on Twitch. And
everyone's a casual first, right?
Yeah. The more I started watching people on Twitch, and I was still very good at Battlefield before that. But
Of course.
I was watching Zarianna play. Then I started playing with her a lot. And I noticed, maybe I should start streaming, because I knew that, I had the setup, like I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew how to do it, because I'm one of those people where if I'm going to figure out how to do something, or if I'm going to be interested in something, I get really into it and I figure
Sure.
out like exactly what I want before I jump into it, kind of thing.
Okay.
So I started playing a lot with Zarianna and watching all those guys. Metal Slug as well. If you guys know who Metal Slug is, the only person that I've ever seen play an FPS game on a trackball mouse. That's
Ooh,
still to this day incredible to me.
big move.
Then from there, I kind of just started going live like very inconsistently, just to see. What's funny is a lot of people don't know this. I actually started out playing. I wasn't super sweaty at games like I am now when I started out. Like I
Uh-huh.
was just casually very skilled, but I was playing on ultra graphics. I remember one of my first streams, the test stream, I tried to stream BF1 1080p 60 FPS on a GTX 970 while playing Battlefield 1 on ultra graphics. Did not work.
Mhm.
I had no idea what I was like encoding lag. Like what the fuck? What is that? Like I don't know what that is. Someone was like, "Why are you playing in ultra graphics?" I forget who it was that came in my chat. It was like literally over 3 years ago. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I should probably not do that." So really inconsistent streams, and then at some point, I just decided that I'm going to stream at 9 p.m. EST, and I'm just going to do it every night.
Word.
And then I did that every night, and I'd play with Zarianna, I would play with Julian Janganu. A lot of people in the chat will know these names.
So part of the
I'll
streaming
play with,
community.
yeah, exactly. I'll start. I would, get affiliated with people. I would play with them, and while I was streaming,
Mhm.
that's pretty much just how that started, and now we're here. So I mean, what a gigantic mistake, honestly.
Yeah, that seems to be a sentiment that I hear in the shooter community among people who have reached a particular level of skill. What is the deal with that?
What's the deal with what? Like, oh, it's a mistake, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's just it's a joke. It's a joke
Okay.
for the most part. At least for me, it is. Maybe not for other people that say that, but that there's nothing behind that.
Okay. All right. That's fine. So the energy that you bring to your streams and your content is pretty unique.
Yeah.
I mean, I really okay. How to frame this question? I want to get a sense of whether when you started in the game of stream when you started streaming and started playing, you said that you had kind of thought things through. You like to have things kind of well ordered in your mind before you engage, and then you're locked in. Did
Yeah.
you anticipate feeling the way you do about what you're doing today years ago when you started?
No, because I wasn't as informed about super like high level like play really. Because
How did mhm.
I was very good casually, but current enders would absolutely dumpster past enders, like just
Mhm.
destroy myself. And once you get into like really understanding a game at a high level and you see like the game for what it is and you contrast how you used to look at it versus how it actually is,
Mhm.
that's when you start to get like, oh shit, like I've seen this a lot with a lot of communities. Like you've
Mhm.
definitely seen it in Planet Side. You've definitely seen it. I have friends that, if, for instance, if I were to play Planet Side 2, maybe I have a little better inclination than most players, but Wook or Zyros could tell me a lot of things that I just wouldn't pick up on immediately. And that's the difference, right? Like I picked up on a lot of things that you can't pick up on unless you really like
Unless you're deep
look
in it.
and learn. Yeah, you have to be involved in it for a while and actually look for it.
Yeah, and it requires a certain desire too, because a lot of people don't ever get that deep. I think
Yeah,
most don't probably.
it's I think the overall desire is, for me, is I want to know everything in the game because I want to be the best I can be at the game.
Uh,
And that's a lot of people don't share that.
Mhm. Why do you think that is?
Why do you think I want to be the best at the game
More
or
so
one
than
of the best at
others?
the game?
Yeah.
I just I've always kind of had that like competitive, like I was in I was on youth soccer teams and um played violin. I was first chair in my, orchestra. I've always kind of been that guy, that does that.
Yeah.
I wasn't ever any good with soccer, but I'd say definitely in high
Still
school
wanted
and
to win,
stuff,
though.
I was still that guy. I wanted to win more than you, and
Mhm.
I wanted
Yeah.
to let I wanted to get to that level.
I do. I do. I saw this fantastic documentary about Michael Jordan, it's called The Last Dance, I think is what it's called. I'm not sure if
I
you've
might have
seen it.
seen that.
But
Yeah,
it
I might have seen that actually.
I mean, I already knew before I watched this. For anyone who didn't watch it, it just chronicles Jordan's career and him as a person. And I knew before watching that he had won a lot and was, considered the greatest of all time by many.
Yeah,
What I didn't know about him is his personality and the
yeah.
edge of competition that he brought. And one of the things that really set him apart is he wanted to win more than anyone else in the room,
Anyone else,
always. At any
and
and
that
not
t-
just at
and that
basketball.
took that personally.
And I took that personally. At any damn thing. Golf, some random card game in the locker room, whatever the hell it was, if he
Yeah.
didn't win, he was pissed, and that drove him.
There it is. I mean, that's just, I don't know what that is. It's like, it's just, it might just be raw competitive nature.
Uh-huh.
Just the will to win. You find a way to win, or
Mhm.
you want to, and sometimes you got to figure it out just
Sure.
through a bunch of different ways.
So other than soccer and streaming and Battlefield, how does that come out in your life, do you think?
Um, I don't know. I'm very organized, I think.
Okay.
I don't get disorganized very often.
Mhm.
And when I do, that's when you get mad. And you're like, mother, why the fuck is that there? And then I fix it all, and then it's all good. So I think I'm very organized. I don't get caught off guard a lot. I'm quite careful.
Mhm.
Not like not scared to do things, but I'm quite careful with certain things. And I maybe it's just that coming out of me in real life. I'm not really sure, but
Sure. I know one of the other things I saw listed in your bio is that you're a violin player. Is that something you still do?
well, I can definitely still play. I just
Uh-huh.
haven't played in a while
Uh-huh.
because I'm not really part of an orchestra anymore. And the thing that really drove me to play was the fact that I was it was part of a team essentially, right? Like I'm part of an orchestra. Like you have a obligation to practice and play well and do all that stuff.
Absolutely.
So I don't play much anymore, but I have not lost it.
Did that will to win, to excel, also manifest in your, orchestra experience? Or is
Mm,
that different?
maybe not as much now. If I went back
Okay.
and did it again, it would now, but not when I was in high school. In high school, I was just, I mean, I think it comes back to, like, I don't want to sound like some fucking weirdo, but I was casually good. I
Yeah.
didn't really practice that much in violin either when I was in high school. Like I was first chair. I didn't practice though at all.
Kinda got by on talent a
And I
little bit.
should have. I should have practiced a lot more, but I didn't. The
Oh.
practice came for me when we were in class, because the thing that orchestra was the last thing. So there was an hour orchestra practice session. Boom. Okay,
Mhm.
that's what I did. And if there was something else that was particularly hard, like I remember one time we were playing Jupiter from the Planets Suite,
Oh, yeah.
and there was a arpeggio that was 30-second notes, and it went up four positions up and four positions down, and it's basically like, it was ridiculous basically. So that's when you really had to practice that. There were very few instances where I would dedicate enough time, and I should have dedicated way more time to it. But I've always kind of just been, I don't know. I don't even know what it's called really. Like I could play violin very well from a natural level.
Any better?
Yes.
Strange. Thanks everyone for alerting me. Anyway, I was just relating to that sense of kind of getting by, having success, not really having to work for it. And then looking back on it after the fact, be like, maybe I could have done something with that.
I could have been, looking back at it, I definitely could have been like considerably better if I really practiced. But there was one girl, I actually still talk to her. She was a child prodigy. I mean, I would never get to that level. Like I'm not child prodigy level. This girl was unbelievable. She was in the senior class when I was a freshman. So when I was a freshman in the orchestra, I was second chair to her. And then when she left, I became first chair until senior year. She was insane. I could never do that. I mean, she was just, if anyone ever played orchestra, I mean, she was sitting there playing Wieniawski like excerpts. I was like, what the fuck? Like, if anyone doesn't know what that is, look up violin Wieniawski. It's like WEI, then it'll come up. It's insane.
Okay.
So I would never reach that level.
In another world.
Yeah. Sure, she was child prodigy. She probably makes a lot of money now somewhere.
Good for her. Hope so. Do you feel when you're approaching what you're doing now, with streaming, with Battlefield, with everything that's going on, do you have that sense of I have something here and I want to make sure I don't let it go when you're approaching that?
When I'm approaching streaming?
Yeah. Well, I heard you say that with the violent stuff.
Right now for me, I've had, so like my mindset has not changed very much from when I started streaming. I just start the stream. But now the difference is I had no viewers back then. Now I have a community that I feel obligated to. All simultaneously, there's going to be a new game coming out and new opportunities. And I'm just interested in myself. I'm just interested in that myself. Like I would stream, even if I didn't have, what I have now, I would still be streaming probably the same schedule. Just because, I don't know, I just make time for that. And I think I'll always make time even after maybe yeah, definitely. But I definitely, now I think it's, I don't know, there's more to do now coming up, and that's kind of reinterested me a little bit.
Of course.
But the mindset hasn't changed.
Yeah. Word. Okay. Well, tell you what, let's talk a little bit about the thing itself, Battlefield, the thing that you've chosen to master. In getting acquainted,
if they would let you.
Indeed.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, let's absolutely plow in, man. So, I watched a bunch of your content, and I heard you say a bunch of things. Like some stuff that has stood out to me has been like that you have been in kind of like autopilot with the current iteration of Battlefield. You felt like,
oh yeah.
And I've also read up on a lot of the gunplay complaints, movement stuff, mechanics stuff. That it's an interesting. You described earlier the feeling of arriving from a place of kind of ignorance about the deeper mechanics of the game to understanding, and how the understanding kind of leads to frustration. In the case of Battlefield, I wonder if you can just describe for me how understanding and getting to that level led to frustration or disappointment for you.
Because you see how little people actually know about the game, and you see how misled the community is, and they don't even know it is the thing. They don't know that they're being misled.
How are they being misled?
And they don't know that. Well, for instance, in Battlefield 5, I remember early on, there's patterns. Oh, there's recoil patterns. That's technically correct, but what they didn't mention is they don't matter. So that's sort of what I'm talking about.
So this is something
Dice says there's recoil patterns.
Mhm.
What actually happened is there's recoil patterns that don't matter because there's other hidden things that they didn't tell you about, which is where the misleading part comes into.
Mhm.
And then the frustration comes from when people that actually go into, they really look at how it works, and they have like a very high level of mechanical, they can discern like things just from playing the game, from experience. They talk to people that go into the engine and figure out all the values for things. Then the frustration comes from when I try to tell people how it actually works. The reality is there's a gigantic fucking wall, and you are never going to break that wall because you're outnumbered 10 million to 1, right? It's just, you're not going to convince them. But you can convince, I've definitely convinced a large number of people and proved to a lot of people what I'm talking about with certain mechanics. And now I see it talked about more, but not outside of the Battlefield community that we're all kind of in right now, which is quite small.
Mhm.
And even then, it hasn't broken out into like, regular places of discussion, such as Reddit. You never see anyone on Reddit talk about the correct mechanics. People still call spread random bullet deviation. It's just,
Mhm.
that's another case of it. Yeah. So the reality is there's a wall you're fighting against, and the people you're trying to convince are already so adamant, adamant about what they think they know, that they're not going to change their opinion.
Mhm. It sounds like for you, engaging with those folks, it's almost like you're in 2 different worlds, but playing the same game.
Yeah. No, it's definitely two different worlds, because, and I understand not everyone goes into it as deeply as I do, but
Mhm.
being correct is not mutually exclusive to being sweaty.
There's a lot of overlap, though, gotta admit.
I mean, you can know nothing about the game, and if I were to explain it to you and contrast the two things, there is, in my opinion, definitely a correct information and misled information there.
Mhm, mhm. Well, actually, I suppose if I'm doing this right, that I'd be proof of that fact. A not sweaty player still understanding what's going on.
Yes,
Um,
yes. Thank God for that, by the way.
well, this is like a I think that the reason that this interests me so much is because of the frustration and a lot of the community dynamics you just laid on the table. So you brought up the example of how kind of there was messaging from the game from the developer, the publisher, about recoil patterns. And when you think of that, you think of like Counter Strike, right? You have like a recoil pattern. You could
Yes,
like put it on a poster and point to it. That is the
yes.
recoil pattern. And that's what you think of when someone says that.
Hmm.
And then you have what you have in Battlefield 5, which tell me if I'm getting this right. There is a recoil pattern, but on top of the recoil pattern, there's also a fuzz factor, which is spread. Spread is when in some
Which
games,
is,
go ahead,
so I'll explain it to you. So
please.
it's really, really, honestly, the person that designed this is kind of a genius,
Hmm.
but didn't apply it in an effective way that actually made sense.
Evil genius.
That was actually worth anything. So the way it
Okay.
works is, so there's still spread in the game,
Mhm.
but it doesn't matter, because there's spread that is, they take that spread value and they
Mhm.
transform it into a recoil value that is added on top of already existing base recoil values
Right.
on a per bullet basis in a random direction.
Mhm. So instead
Does
of
that make
like,
sense?
yeah, I think so. So in like a non-Battlefield 5 implementation of spread, what you'd often see is the gun points here, but the bullet goes like this way or this way, and it's kind of a randomness factor. That's
It's
the
like the
spread.
more you shoot without resetting, the larger
Yeah,
your spread gets.
cone of
And
accuracy.
that's a very, yes, exactly, the kind of action. I mean, PlanetSide has, I'm not going to speak for PlanetSide's Gunplay,
That
but
is how
I've played
Planet Side
PlanetSide a little
works.
bit. It has
Yeah,
spread.
yeah,
That is pretty much how PlanetSide works.
yeah. As a kind of counter example, but in Battlefield 5, you take that spread value, that fuzz factor, and instead of having the bullet go to the side, but the gun just moves to the recoil position, the gun also moves to follow the spread, which means that there's always a randomness factor in the recoil, meaning it seems unmasterable.
It's not masterable. I can tell you that definitively. It's definitely not masterable.
Mhm.
I play with and against the best players in the world. I can tell you definitively right now, no one has mastered Battlefield 5 gunplay because it cannot be mastered. Like,
Okay.
I just played against my own teammates who happen to be some of the best Battlefield 5 players in the world.
Mhm.
And I mean, none of them mastered it. None of them. It's not designed to be mastered, unfortunately, which is sad.
Why is it sad?
Because I feel like there's some sort. I feel like if you design an FPS games, one of the essential, like, it's a first-person shooter, right?
Mhm.
So if you design one of the integral parts of the game to never be masterable and I'll never be consistent,
Mhm.
I feel like that's just disingenuous almost. Like it's just offensive the way they did it to good players because we put in so much time and like you're trying to tell me, we put in all this time and we don't get to know when I'm trying to put this in a way that makes sense. We
Mhm.
put in all this time and we don't get to know that we don't get to know what our weapon is going to do.
Right.
That's just stupid. Like like that's
Sure.
not good for casual players either. Definitely not good for casual players either. Because
Mhm.
it's you want to have some sort of predictability.
Right. It seems to me that
There's no payoff.
mhm. That's a very important, I think, thing you just said. There's no payoff. Another word that comes to mind is player agency. Um,
Yeah.
Skill is something that can't exist without agency. Agency is the ability to control, to have your input control the output of the
Yes.
actions of the whatever is happening. And so you can put in the same input in the same exact situation 2 different times with regard to, like,
And have a
the
different
recoil
outcome.
thing and have a different outcome.
Yes. And
Now
this is why Battlefield 5 is a heavy position biased game. The positioning in Battlefield 5 is the most important thing in the game
okay.
because it negates how much you missing because of the gunplay design matters.
Hmm,
If you can buy enough time with positioning, you're probably going to kill that person because it doesn't matter how much you just missed.
sure,
You've put that guy in a position where he cannot counter anything you're doing to him.
sure. So that's interesting. Do you think that shift in emphasis was a deliberate one or an emergent one?
Neither. That they don't know what they're doing.
So
They don't. They had no
the
idea that was
devs of Battlefield DICE.
yeah. They did not they didn't understand the consequences of doing that.
Okay.
Definitely not. Like that is and I can guarantee you that some of the people working for that developer company were ripping their hair out and not wanting to do that for
Mhm,
sure.
mhm,
There are people that were ex BF4 ESL professional players. I can guarantee you, those people looked at those mechanics and played it and said, "Oh my god, if I had the ability to change this second, I would do it." But
mhm.
they can't because they're a developer. They get told what to do, right? So
There's a
they
whole lot of
can't
people.
necessarily do it.
Yeah,
And there's a whole lot more that goes into it. But yeah, they don't really have the power to say, hey, we're not doing that. It's like it's in the game. You have to ship it. It's a
mhm.
whole big thing.
Is there an audience of player who that mechanic, that the randomness and the position emphasis serves in particular?
Um, uh,
Like, is this a win
I
for
want to say
casual players? Like,
it's. I can tell you, it's definitely not a win for the sweaty players, and I don't even think it's a win for casual players either.
okay.
But I will say it does help them
Mhm.
because it helps them and hurts them at the same time. Because removing the ability for players like myself to master gunplay definitely saves certain players from dying to us sometimes. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I've died to people that are prone literally still. And my gun did a figure 8 and I died to them. That wouldn't happen if that would not happen if the recoil was any sort of controllable, right? So it saves a certain group of player. Actually, I can't even necessarily tie it to a certain group of player. It almost hurts and helps us both, because like it might save me sometimes, but it will also get me killed sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
adds the randomness.
It's just stupid, is what it is. Like I don't.
You know what I noticed? Like, you ever play Super Smash Brothers?
I have never played Super Smash. No, I have not.
Okay. Well, this should be easy to explain anyway. So it's a fighter game.
Yes.
You bong each other on the face, and then
you try to knock them off.
Check out the side of the map. But usually, if you're just loading up for the first time, what's going to happen over the course of a round is little power up items are going to drop into the map, and these power ups are random items randomly distributed, and they can change the outcome of the match. When I first started playing Smash Brothers back in high school, I noticed that the better I got at it, the less I wanted to have those power ups in the game. And I would say, let's turn them off. They're just crap. Like, they make the result
do
meaningless.
Competitive players, does the rule set ban power ups?
I should know the answer to that question. I don't. I'd imagine it does for people who play it seriously.
Does anyone in chat know? Does anyone know anything about Super Smash Brothers competitive? Do they ban power ups?
I gotta believe they do, or maybe they limit it in some fashion. Always banned.
Items are always banned. Okay.
Yeah. So, and I noticed that. I noticed back then that whenever I would want to play the game with someone who hadn't played it before, they were always sad when items got turned off. It was a fun part of the game, like the randomness adds something. And I think that was kind of where I was going when I was asking if the randomness in a game like Battlefield could be a win for certain kinds of players. Because
I think you have to pinpoint where the randomness is occurring, though. Okay. I think you definitely don't want that level of randomness in gunplay, in my opinion. You definitely don't. You can have, Battlefield I think it's a random game almost inherently, because you have so many players going everywhere across the map.
Right.
There's tanks, there's airplanes, there's mines people set down. There's a bunch of rotations going on. I mean, Battlefield is a very chaotic game inherently. And I think any sort of randomness is it's more effectively placed somewhere else.
Yeah, sure. So, like,
for instance,
on something that's less under your control. Sorry, go ahead.
For instance, I mean, a perfect example of this, I think, is the Battlefield 1 Elite kits.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
Work? I don't. No.
So there's a kit that spawns on the ground. It essentially is an armored. You're basically Iron Man, and you get basically a power up, right? That's, I think, where you can put randomness. And is that even randomness? What is that? It's not random because it spawns. It's like that is where you can put that element of. I don't even know what that is. Like, that's where you should put that, right? Not in gunplay.
Okay. So basically, gunplay is kind of sacred in a way, and you shouldn't fuck with it. You shouldn't make it unmasterable.
Not like that. You should.
Okay.
And another thing that was sacrilegious they did. See, I didn't complain about the recoil being random until they decoupled point of aim from screen center.
Tell me about that.
That's fucked.
It seems strange.
That's even worse, in my opinion, than the random recoil. Because it took your reference point away to control it, right? Or to try to control it.
Yeah.
It's just not in the game. It shouldn't be in the game.
So basically, my understanding of that is, correct me if I'm wrong, is there are a lot of first-person animations in a game like Battlefield. Your arms, you're going this way, your gun is, like, jostling up and down when you're running, whatever. And if you're in the middle of an animation and you can shoot, but the gun is not pointing at dead center of the screen, the bullet will go the direction the gun is pointing, not at the center of the screen.
So what they did is, PlanetSide is, correct me if I'm wrong, Zars. PlanetSide has center tide point of aim, like a normal FPS game. And this is the center tide point of aim is normality, I would say, in FPS games.
It's pretty standard.
So what they did
is Halo or Destiny.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, but what they did is they took center tide point of aim and they tied your point of aim to the weapon's sight.
Okay.
Which allows it to drift away from screen center.
Mhm.
Which is, and aiming, you aim with the center of your screen. That's what aiming is. Like, if you play Kovacs, you're not aiming with an arbitrary point that's moving around a center point. You're aiming with the center point of your screen.
Got it.
So them tying recoil to center to your weapon's sight introduces a second point, right?
Mhm.
So if I were to be running around and you have your hipfire crosshair, imagine the direct center. If it was tied to screen center like it was in Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1, it doesn't matter what your weapon is doing, where your bullets are going is the center of your screen. And when you decouple that and tie it to weapon sight, so say I'm aiming at somebody in my center screen, but it's decoupled now. So my screen center could be over him, but my weapon sight could be 5 degrees to the left. Where I'm actually aiming is 5 degrees to the left. And that's sacrilegious because I'm actually aiming in the center of my fucking screen like a normal person. But then you have to account for what they did there. So
yeah. This seems difficult. Is where the bullet will go in some way predictable? Can it be learned? Can it be mastered? It's not random. It's just a pain in the ass. So yeah, you add the random recoil on top of that.
The point of aim is your weapon sight. So where your weapon sight is, that's where you're aiming.
Right.
And the recoil will move your weapon sight, right? So it's like, it's so hard to explain without like really detailed like recordings. It really is. This is such a weird system that they put in this game.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly tired of talking about it. I cannot wait. I can't wait to not play
Hopefully this is like the last time, man.
That
the beta of 2042 is upon us, right? A couple weeks out, something like that.
Yeah. I would bet that the leaked date is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll just have to see. Okay. But I'm reading your frustration. Actually, funny, like I'm asking myself what examples I can think of in all the years I've been playing shooter games of any that had decoupled aim from the screen center. Actually, this old ass game I used to play, a mod for Half-Life 1, Team Fortress Classic, had concussion grenades. And when you were hit by a concussion grenade, it made your aim dizzy.
Really?
And I actually have a bunch of friends who actually still play Team Fortress Classic 20 years later. And as with any competitive game, people who play a game for 20 years get disgustingly good. And these players can predictably map their aim through the path of a concussion grenade because it is predictable. It's not telegraphed on the screen anywhere. It's very hard to look. If you don't know what you're doing, it's impossible to hit anything.
Yeah, I imagine there's some sort of...
It's a figure eight. Like, it's pretty simple. And so I have friends who can, perfectly hit with hit scan projectile weapons through that, and it's just like, what the fuck? But that it gets to a point where you can do that. But it sounds like with this decoupling that's not quite the case with Battlefield. It's not like people are feeling like it is predictable, like it is something that can be mastered.
It's a combination of both. It's a combination of the recoil being the way it is and the way it works, and a combination of them decoupling it. Because the decoupling it makes it infinitely worse. Because now you're essentially aiming with a floating point. That's how I would describe it. You're aiming with a floating point that is also random.
Yeah, and it's not really explicitly telegraphed where you're aiming, where that point is on the screen. It's not like your crosshair moves around, right?
Well, you'll aim, and before you shoot, like you'll aim dead center screen. While you're shooting, that's when it starts doing that.
Sure.
So when you shoot, when you start shooting, that's really when it starts,
Right, right.
doing what it does.
You know what this kind of calls to mind is like, um, a, I don't know if you were around, like, the last time that when they, fucked with Coca-Cola, the formula for Coke, and they introduced new Coke, and everyone hated
Yeah,
it.
maybe I vaguely remember that. What year was that?
Oh, fuck. I might not have be even old enough to be around for that. I've seen the commercials, and I saw a video on it at one point, and it talked about this phenomenon where, uh, there was a competition, in Pepsi coming up and a desire to outcompete Pepsi, and, basically what they did is they set up these Pepsi had this marketing campaign where they did these blind taste tests, and they said, "Okay, here's beverage 1, here's beverage 2. Pick the one you like better." And apparently Pepsi statistically was chosen more often by people in these tests. And Coke was like, "Well, we gotta fix this problem. We gotta respond to this." And so they changed the product to perform better in these tests to counter this kind of marketing campaign. But the thing is, people who already love Coke hated new Coke, and they missed a very important little detail, which was that these tests favored whichever drink was sweeter because people were having small individual sips. And whatever is sweeter on the tongue, people like, but that's not the kind of thing you want to drink 8 ounces of necessarily. So they went back to the old formula. Businesses try stuff and shit doesn't always work. I wonder if like this decoupling and um this spread to recoil conversion stuff is like new Coke for Battlefield. Do you think 2042 is going to continue with this kind of stuff, or do you think that they're going to get their act together?
Battlefield games tend to be fairly unpredictable with what they're going to do in terms of mechanics next.
Okay.
For instance, let me just illustrate. So, Battlefield 4 initially had visual recoil,
Mhm.
but it was always center tied. And then what they did is they got rid of the visual recoil, which means Battlefield 4 is really like the purest form of aiming.
Okay.
Like there's no visual recoil. It's all real. Like what your reticle is actually doing is like 100% representative.
Mhm.
Then Battlefield 1 comes out right after Hardline. It's center tied, but then the visual recoil thing happens.
Mhm.
And they never patch visual recoil out. So it's always center where your bullets are going, but now your gun is lying to you, just like what they patched out of Battlefield 4, which you'd
Mm.
think if they patched something out of a previous game, they would carry over that same thought process into the next game. Then Battlefield 5 comes out and they go for a different style of gunplay. They, instead of deleting spread from the game, they transform spread into this new system where they transform it into recoil.
Mhm.
Initially, Battlefield 5 had center tied recoil, and then they decoupled it. It's like, so it's, I can't
Oh,
even
it was
predict.
patched? Weird.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So this is why I can't even answer what 2042's gunplay is going to be.
Oh.
I don't know. It could be laser beam gunplay with like only recoil values that with visual
Yeah.
recoil. It could be spread with decouple. I have no idea. We'll see.
How does that feel? Not knowing, not having any
It pisses
idea.
me off.
Yeah.
It pisses me off because I understand. I understand them wanting to do different things with gunplay, and I'm not picky with gunplay. I'll take Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1, Battlefield Hardline. I'll take those gunplay systems. But it's weird because I just feel like they try to reinvent the wheel, and they should not do that because it doesn't work.
Mhm. Now, you've always played Battlefield mouse and keyboard, right?
Yes, I started the first Battlefield game I ever played was when my dad bought his first gaming laptop, and Battlefield 3 came free with it.
Word.
And I started playing Battlefield 3 on that. Yes, I've always played Battlefield mouse and keyboard.
Okay. Do these systems hit differently or better on controller, do you think? Is there some kind of controller versus mouse thing going on here with this design?
No, I think it's a these systems are fundamentally, it's universally, like
Weird.
it's the concept of it, right?
Uh-huh.
So I think the concept of it is it universally applies as far as what it should be to all platforms.
Okay. Okay. Um Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. Um,
We'll see. I mean, I've seen gameplay.
yeah.
From what I can gather so far. The gunplay in 2042 to me seems very odd. There's some weird stuff going on there, and
Like what?
we will never know what. Okay, for instance, the hipfire reticle seems to deviate from screen center,
Oh,
but it might be visual, like only visual, which means it's like Battlefield 1. So the crosshair might be telling you one thing, but you're actually aiming screen center. And then
okay.
ADS, aiming down sights, it seems like it's center tied like Battlefield 4 to me. Other people think there's visual recoil. So basically, no one knows what the fuck's going on. So we'll have to get hands on with that game. And that's one of the first things. If you want to see like the real process of figuring it out, tune into my stream day one of the beta. The first thing we're doing is we're figuring out movement. We're going to see what that's like. And then we're going to figure out the gunplay, see what that's like. Like what is going on here with these mechanics. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if
That's going to
something's
be.
drastically wrong, I'm going to let them know on Twitter almost daily. Honestly, like I don't care. Like these people need to really understand that you need to hammer some of this stuff out because it's just bizarre. Like
The announced launch date is like end of October, right?
October
So
22nd. I'm counting the days down. Don't worry. It's October
doesn't
15th for me because I pre-ordered and I'm getting off of Battlefield 5 immediately.
word.
So, and I have to because I'm a content creator. But
Yeah. It doesn't seem like a lot of time to make changes between the beta and the launch.
oh no. What people don't understand is the beta is probably gonna be like 95% finished game, and they'll change some things here and there. But it's pretty much it'll be relatively finished. You know.
Mhm, mhm. More of like a stress test than a true beta, perhaps.
No, it'll be a true beta, but it's 95% done for
Okay.
sure.
Okay. So, okay, well, I'll be very interested to see what your take on 2042 and the beta is when it comes out. But like I was
Anything
mentioning,
but BF5 mechanics.
what's that? Anything but Battlefield 5?
Anything about Battlefield 5 mechanics. Don't do what you did in Battlefield 5 and we'll be good. Seriously,
Sure.
like that's and don't do some other weird shit. Like just make a video game and there it is.
Yeah, and don't fuck with the sacred skills of shooting a gun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or within reason. Like give me spread, give me I don't know, give me visual recoil but leave it center tied. There's like a boundaries in my mind, right? And BF5 is past those boundaries. Like you don't do the things you do in Battlefield 5 to gunplay.
Mhm.
That's like past the boundaries where it's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I'm really inclined to agree with you. I'm asking myself why I feel that way because I'm not really a sweaty player. Like I don't play to a high level. But
I
it's almost
think
like go ahead. What's your take?
I think I don't know. You probably just don't like not knowing for sure, you know?
It's
You
almost
don't want
like
to be lied to in gunplay. Like you don't want it to be misrepresentative.
sure. Yeah, I think that's true. And to me, it feels like shooting is just one of those kinds of mechanics that is so broad, it's so well known and so well traveled that it
Yeah,
doesn't. It seems like it's something that doesn't need that might not need to be reinvented. It's almost
exactly.
like I'm trying to give of a good like metaphor. Like let's say like baseball is a game that I love, right? And let's say you're playing backyard baseball and you have your own, your house rules or whatever. There are some house rules that kind of make sense and kind of can inject some interesting stuff into the game. But there's some things you probably don't want to fuck with. Like you probably still want to have a pitcher throwing to a batter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like the sacred baseball
The
interaction.
the fundamentals of FPS. The
Right.
fundamentals of FPS game. That's what it
Yeah.
is. Like
So like and if you do fuck with that, the impact ends up being that people who are interested in this kind of game in general can't transfer their skills in and out very effectively.
exactly because it's not if you're not educated on how the game functions, I mean, part of the problem I think with Battlefield 5 is like I can't tell you how many people come into my chat
Mhm.
when I'm streaming and be like, "What the fuck is wrong with this game?" Like, this is my first time playing this game. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this? Like, it doesn't feel right. They
Uh-huh.
say that like it doesn't feel right. Something feels wrong with this game, and the problem is it doesn't function like any other FPS game does.
Mhm.
You know, so there's no transferability between the fundamentals aren't the same. They're not respected in Battlefield 5.
Right.
Like shooting fundamentals and all that. It's like so it doesn't transfer well between games. And
Right.
people come to my chat and it shows that. Like someone came into my chat today, you know, like, oh my God, like this game it doesn't feel right at all. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, like I told you.
Yeah, it's almost like if you're gonna do that, you should start fresh with like a different IP, different identity. Like if you're really gonna change something that fundamental, okay. I'm starting to
I think what they did in Battlefield 5 with the
yeah.
decoupling and the spread to recoil, you reserve those mechanics specifically for games that are going for a realism factor.
Okay.
And Baranox is in
Realism.
the chat, probably cringing right now, but I think if you're going to have spread to recoil conversion and decoupled point of aim, you put that in a milsim game because it
Such
makes it seem like oh my God, I'm fighting a fucking, you know, it makes it feel somewhat,
feel out of control.
yeah, it makes it feel like, you know, you're having trouble controlling the weapon and all that shit. So definitely, I think you reserve those mechanics for a deliberately marketed, realistic experience.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I hear this term milsim get used pejoratively sometimes in the planet side scene. People who are like accused of being milsim are kind of
The mindset.
they're kind of portrayed as being out of touch with the fact that what people are experiencing is a game.
Hmm.
And they're kind of almost like they're it's kind of like the um like they're role playing in a shooter game.
Hmm.
You know,
But specifically in PlanetSide, they'll probably have a problem with it because it's a game with laser guns and ESFs, right? So it's like a direct
yeah, like
conflict.
there are all kinds of ways I think that the perception of that mindset can kind of play out. But particularly with social interactions and like how
Hmm.
people should be organized, what kinds and plant sides like a different animal in many different ways. I don't want to go too deep into it because it's like 1,000 players on a continent with like 40 bases.
Oh, I've played it.
Yeah, yeah. So you get what I'm saying. There are many different kinds of decisions to make in that kind of game. Um, and those decisions can be formed differently by someone who's like, "Hey, I just want to have something like an enjoyable action experience." And what are the
And that's fine.
criteria for an enjoyable action experience versus what are the criteria for like living out my kind of milsim role play fantasy?
The problem arises. You can milsim in PlanetSide, but the problem arises when you start to project your opinion on certain things that
Okay.
like game mechanics and how things work. That is where, and this is the same thing in Battlefield. The same thing in Battlefield.
Hmm.
You get players that think Battlefield should be something that it definitely isn't,
Hmm.
and then they, start having like super strong opinions of their own. It's like, okay, like you can have your opinion, but like honestly, it is so far from what is even reality that you don't even understand how far out it is. You know what I mean?
On
And I think the problem arises when they start to do that. You can milsim in Battlefield. You can create a milsim server. I will not join your server. Trust me. Um,
Mhm.
do not tell me how gunplay works, though. Don't tell me how mechanics should work. Don't, because like it's not going to end well, really.
Sure. A few days ago, I saw you tweet this. You tweeted, "Listen, sometimes, and this goes for a lot of things in life, the only people qualified to speak on certain things are the people who are actually good and experienced at those certain things."
Yeah, it's fact.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say that. That's true. No, I tweeted that, and I'll say that's true for sure. And that's just the brutal truth of it. Sometimes, not every time. I think when you look at specifically the intricacies of how games work, who would you want to comment on that? Do you want a guy that plays 2 hours a week, or do you want someone that plays a lot and is mechanically inclined and knows how it works and therefore can identify potential problems with how it works and how to fix it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, that's a no-brainer. I want the guy that knows what he's talking about.
I suppose in an ideal world, you'd want to listen to both people, but take their experience and take their merit into consideration when hearing what they have to say.
Some things yes, some things no. I'm of the opinion that so do you ever hear the opinion like no opinions can be wrong? That's wrong. Like, I'm sorry. Like some opinions are definitely wrong. I've seen some wrong opinions in my life for sure.
Okay.
It's down to I honestly do feel like sometimes you need to there are things that everyone can have opinions on, and there are some things that only a certain group of people maybe should have an opinion on.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the overarching, for instance, in Battlefield 5, I'm completely fine with people having, every single person having an opinion on, do you like ammo crates dispersed around the map? Do you like medic self-heal? Do you like recon spotting you when you're shot? Do you like suppression being a visual aspect? But when it starts getting into the more technical like things, like what do you think about recoil being random? What do you think about the point of aim being decoupled from screen center? What do you think about there being legacy bugs in the game, like the ADS sway jump bug, which has been in every single Battlefield game since Battlefield 3? Those things, you only ask people that know what they're talking about. Those really like mechanically educated things.
If you're going to go to the bottom of the iceberg, you gotta get a diver. That kind of idea.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
And it's kind of like a brutal way to look at it, but like honestly, I'm sorry. That's.
Can you point to any examples of places where, in Battlefield's case, you've seen people put things out there that you feel they didn't comment on well because they weren't sufficiently experienced to understand the problem?
Yes. This happens a lot with when I post a screenshot of me going 125 and 13, and I'm like, holy shit, we lost this game. And then someone comments, maybe you should have captured some flags. And I'm like, do you understand like the amount of damage I'm dealing? And like, do you understand that the people that I just killed, they're like, I killed your entire team over 2 times. Like the amount of damage I'm doing as an individual at that moment. Yeah. I am killing your whole team is dead. You know, it's not my fault. It is my team's fault for not capitalizing on the space that I just made, because I'll never forget it. I forgot who said this first, but dead bodies can't capture objectives. And they get all, you should have captured this, you should have captured that. Well, how do you capture flags? Do you walk up to them and ask the enemy, or do you kill them and then take it? That's where that's a good example of that. I feel like.
I feel that. Yeah. Another baseball metaphor. So one of the things that pitchers were traditionally really weighed against each other on is the win statistic. But the thing is, whether you win a game as a pitcher is
sabermetrics.
Well, sabermetrics help respond to this problem. So because you could throw, let's say, a 9-inning complete game, giving up 1 run, which is a fantastic pitching feat. If your team scores no runs, if your team doesn't score any runs, which is totally outside of your control, you lose. So you don't get the win. So you have some pitchers who are putting in fantastic individual performances, like a 125 and 13 run, but they're
Yeah,
losing.
let's say I throw literally a no-hitter,
right.
and we still lose somehow.
Yeah.
You know, like
So when you posted that screenshot, what you were saying is it's
all I need
it's
in that
difficult.
situation, I'm going to tell you what I need. In
Uh-huh.
that situation, the only thing I would need in that game is I need 2 to 3 people that
Yeah.
push up into space and take it.
You need warm bodies.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, I need living people that are moving in the game. That's it. And we
Yeah.
win that game. Period. I might even do even better because they don't get the enemies don't get to come back into the space that they just lost, right?
Mhm.
And that's what I need.
Yeah. And people responding to that saying you should play the objective. It seems like they're kind of trying to
I should play the objective, but it's an FPS game, and they neglect the fact that the main objective over the flags is kills,
right.
are kills, even in
And
Battlefield.
I feel like they're trying to cast you in the character of like this like kind of stereotypical gamer dude who thinks he's a badass but actually isn't that good, and they're like, I'm carrying the team, I'm getting all the kills, but they're not paying attention to what's actually happening, and that's kind of the accusation. But
It's I'm
for
trying
someone
to
like
think of
you,
the
I don't
ways.
see that sticking. But for someone who doesn't know who you are, who doesn't see what you do, it's a weird perception. It kind of in some
People have a
ways,
perception of how the game is won. You know, and they see, okay, there's A, B, and C flag. You win the game by capturing those flags.
right.
But they miss the fact that you don't just capture those flags. Like you can't just walk up to them, right? The underlying, even more important thing is the fact that you need to kill people
Mhm.
or you lose. Like that's why this is a first-person shooter, right? And people somehow miss that. They really try to, I feel like, undermine the importance of actually killing people in Battlefield. They
Mhm.
really try to undermine that sometimes, and they think it's like, oh, kills don't matter. It's like, okay, yes, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, they clearly do. Um, I guess what kind of interests me about this interaction you're describing is it's kind of an instance of like a
It's
broader
much more black
weird
and white than
community
people
thing that seems to happen a lot.
say. That again. I was totally.
No, 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 it's fine. And I want to hear what your thought was too. But I was just saying this seems to be a theme, right? A theme of good players getting hate.
I think honestly, I think the root of that is some of it might be the deliverance of it from the good player, right? Like I'm fully aware. Sometimes I'm just a total fucking asshole because I'm pissed, right? Like,
Yep.
listen, that's part of it. But some of
Uh-huh.
it, I think even more so, is it's misunderstanding.
Okay.
It's a misunderstanding at its root.
Okay. So how do you go about dealing with that problem when people misunderstand you?
Well, I try to keep it off Twitter now. I try to deliver things on Twitter a little more. When let's say I post a screenshot like that, right?
Mhm.
I try to explain things to people a lot, and I think people don't understand. The dynamic that I was explaining with the kills versus like objective thing. It's really black and white, and the better you are at the game, the more you see how black and white it really is between objectives and kills, right?
Mhm.
I think the casual player base, which is a majority of people, obviously,
Mhm.
and this might even be on a per person basis because I've spoken to people that they don't play the game, but they understand the importance of kills to the game.
Yep.
Um, I think people get caught up on one thing and kind of go like, this is the only thing that matters. You know, doesn't matter. You got 120 kills, blah blah blah. You still should have captured some flags. And I was like, okay, I can't capture the flag because every time I'm on the flag, I die because my team is not pushing. I might be killing 30 people, but I can't kill 30 people every single life, every single time I have to do that. I need more than that from my team.
Yeah,
And it's not just as simple as, capture the flag. Okay, it's like, for instance, in Breakthrough, there are some really difficult sectors in Breakthrough on Battlefield 5. Very difficult. Most difficult probably being Almarsh first sector. A lot of people in the chat might not understand this. Almarsh first sector Breakthrough. There are quite literally 4 choke points the size of like an alleyway. That's the only way your team can really get through there. And the only way you're going to get through there is if you frag hard the enemy team. You kill the enemy team really hard. And you need to capitalize on that space when you create it. Because you kill people, those people no longer occupy that space. You move into that space. And eventually it creates, you get map control. And once you have that map control, it's easier to move around the map, make rotations, and it's easier to hold it because you now have the ability to become both the attackers and the defenders of the point you just captured because of that map control. And I think people think, weirdly enough, that all you really need to do is you just need to get on the flag. Don't worry about anything else. Just get on the flag.
Yeah.
Doesn't work because you die, right? And then you have to respawn and you're not on the flag. Then you get on it again. Then you die again. It's like, okay, what's going on here? You're dying, which means they're killing you, which is preventing you from winning the game. But yeah. So province as well. Spy. Province Breakthrough is another great example of that. Province Breakthrough is a wide open hill sector.
Okay.
Very little cover. You need people to really participate in playing the game to take it. And that requires smoke and kills. Even to get up to the point. And once you're at that point where you're just in front with the sandbags, that's where you can start getting into the point and you take map control away from them. And you'll see, I see it a lot. Even in games where, Province Breakthrough, you start with 500 tickets at the beginning. You have 500 deaths you can have. I've seen games, we'll lose 400 tickets on the first sector, and we'll only have 100 tickets left. But we still take it eventually. But that's just how hard it was to take.
Yeah.
And consistently, every time when we take it, the whole team is pushing up there and killing the enemy. Every single person on my team almost is there. And, you put pressure, you take map control away, and you kill them so they can't respawn.
Sure.
On their teammates.
Yeah. Makes sense. If we back this up to a question of why would a person say you should have stood on the flag? Like, the reason you lost is because you weren't capturing the flag. It kind of jumps out at me that like the most visible thing that someone can be doing as a teammate is it's hard to tell as a teammate if someone next to you is fragging out real hard. But it can be very easy to see whether someone is standing on the point or not. And it's also very obvious when standing on the point results in moving the victory condition forward.
Yes.
So
sometimes that is the case. If you only really need 5, 6 people, 7 people doing the fragging. If the rest of the people are just moving into that space, which is the flag, you're overwhelming it, right? Now, obviously, if everybody was fragging, I mean, a total landslide, right? Total landslide. If every single person was fragging. Realistically, what you need 4 to 7 people on your team doing the killing, and the rest of the people are kind of the people that solidify what you just did. And those people are the people that stand on the flag, like you said. They do present a problem for the enemies that you just killed, right? Because you were just taken out of that space, and now the enemies that pushed the people that pushed up into that space that was just lost, you have to get them out of there. And they're going to shoot at you, right? Like, not everyone might, but some people, I've seen it before, countless times. People just sit in the corner, and they're just a number on the flag, right?
Mhm.
That isn't ideal, but after you've taken that point, right, with killing like that, they do become a problem because now you have to hunt them down and find them. And if you didn't kill the people that were really fragging, you're not even going to be allowed to try to find those people on the flag because
Mhm.
you've lost the point at that point, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're describing to me is a situation where there are kind of invisible roles being played by you and by your teammates.
Yeah. Sometimes I would say almost all the time there's an unspoken like purpose somebody can do just
Mhm.
by like existing.
Yeah, by being in a certain
The
position relative to the enemy and to the teammates in the map state.
perfect example of that is
Okay.
literally just being alive
Uh huh.
provides a certain pressure,
Yeah.
right? Because you're like, that's a bad guy. I don't want to die there, you
Hmm.
know? And what people don't realize is I'm speaking as if all 32 of my teammates are playing the game.
Mm.
No. What really happens in Battlefield games, if you had an overhead camera, I would be willing to bet that only between 10 to 10 to 20 stretching it, 10 to 20 people are really playing the game, meaning they're pushing up, they're smoking, they're killing people, they're trying to take the point.
Hmm.
The other 12 people in your team are quite literally doing nothing. Sniping in the back of the map, utilizing a vehicle wrong where they're in the back of the map doing nothing, prone on some weird rock, like shooting actually nothing. So it's not as like your whole team is actually playing the game.
Mm.
So within those 10 to 20 people that are, pushing up and all that, there are sort of roles that are not spoken. Like you have the people that are doing the fragging, the people that move up into the space and control the point,
Mhm.
and that's pretty much it
And
right
the
there.
people who have their hands down their pants in the back of the map.
Yes, and the people that are the people that are actually doing nothing.
Mhm.
Which they always type easy at the end of the game as well. Those guys guaranteed easy. Am I right, chat?
That's what the other hand is for. So here's a dumb question. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how does a guy like you end up getting into matches with people who are playing like that?
It's just the nature of Battlefield. It's unavoidable.
Okay, and that's because when you're playing Battlefield, you're jumping into different servers, and
Yeah,
anyone
it's
can
just a
join them.
random server. It's just a random server. Anyone can join them. You can never control how people play.
Mhm.
You can never control how people play. And that's part of the problem with attrition in Battlefield 5. They tried to force team play. Guess what doesn't work? Forcing team play. Because you can't control how people play.
Mm.
You just can't. Like, you can try as hard as you want. You will never be able to coax Billy Bob 1945 if he wants to prone on a rock with a M1918 mounted machine gun. He is going to do that. And
Mhm.
there it is.
Yeah. So it's almost like you have to plan for the game. If assuming that the 2042, like we're projecting a lot of these things into what the future of Battlefield could be, right? So it's almost like if we continue in a world where you're loading up into a server that anyone else can play into, public servers and stuff like that, you have to assume that there's some percentage of people who are not really pushing the victory condition forward for one reason or another.
Yes. And I
And
feel as though Battlefield really illustrates that, as well
okay,
as PlanetSide. PlanetSide is the
yeah,
same dynamic.
that's what I was going to
PlanetSide is
say.
the same dynamic. It's because of the way Battlefield is. It is a large scale, chaotic, confusing game. And not everybody can either have the confidence or the awareness to be
Hmm.
able to say, that is clear, I'm going to move up. A lot of the time, you'll see players that really aren't contributing anything. They quite literally maybe just don't notice that they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
They don't quite understand that, okay, the area that where people were just now, there are no longer anyone there. And I've seen this before. You'll see a
Uh,
sniper just really into it, right? Like he's fucking He's lean peeking over there.
Chicken
I'm like,
jive.
dude, there's actually nothing over there. But he doesn't know that because of the nature of the game.
Yeah.
It's quite confusing. You have to be able to identify dynamically what is going on, and not everyone can really do that.
Yeah, brother, I hear that. This is something that happens you see everywhere in PlanetSide. It's the problem of where to be relative to the
Yes,
action.
where to be. When I play PlanetSide, the shock, not really shocking, but the thing that I really have to understand is like, okay, where is the next fight? When do I need to be there? When should I leave the current fight? There it is. Like,
That's the
it's
eternal
about fight
alchemy
hopping.
of PlanetSide right there. Absolutely, brother. And how do you prevent fights from going away that are already good?
Yes. Well, I mean, that's
the community hates on each other pretty hard for that.
I mean, if someone gal drops fucking, I've seen it. I've seen the recursion stacks. I've seen the space pigs. Yeah, I've seen that.
The space
pigs.
That. Lord Tiger and the space pigs. Yeah, and one of the big flashpoints in PlanetSide ends up being, because in order to kind of attack a base, what we have to do is you have to create a spawn point for the attackers near the base. Otherwise, there's no fucking fighting because everyone dies.
Yes, and then air to ground camps you, and that's fun.
Yeah, and these spawn points come from vehicles, and these vehicles can be destroyed. And so there's this kind of weird etiquette on the part of defenders about when to destroy an enemy spawn point versus when to let it be because it's an enjoyable fight. And so you have these people who are playing the games because they want to have a fun action experience, and they're like, hands off the Sunderer. The holy Sunderer.
Yeah, don't touch the Sunderer.
The thing that is allowing this fight that I am enjoying to happen. Versus the other folks who are like, we gotta take this territory, we gotta push them back. And I'm putting on a dumb voice, which is probably not cool of me to do.
That's pretty accurate.
I tend to side with the I want a fun action experience kind of folks.
Some of the I heard they got rid of. Am I hearing this? I heard they got rid of biolabs.
Oh, they changed them, man. Biolabs were like a shrine of infantry combat, and now
I don't play the game if you remove
compromised
biolabs from the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like where people. That's the Operation Lockers of PlanetSide.
Yeah, man. But both these games, both these experiences, it sounds like I know a lot about PlanetSide. I'm learning about Battlefield here. Have this interesting situation where you have players of all different kinds of motivations and skill levels all playing side by side.
Yes.
Which as the genre of multiplayer shooters kind of matures, we seem to be generally moving away from. There's this kind of in the focus on most games to have skill-based matchmaking and ranking systems where you're only playing people who are at your level.
Skill-based matchmaking in casual modes is a disservice to gaming.
Why?
Well, first of all, if you're someone like me who gets put in the upper skill-based matchmaking brackets, what people think it does is, oh, he's playing against sweaties. No, I'm not. What's actually happening is you're putting me on a team of very bad players, and I'm the only good player playing against a bunch of either mediocre players or equally bad players.
Mm-hmm.
But the enemy team is not as bad as the team that you put me on. That's my experience with at least Modern Warfare skill-based matchmaking.
Okay.
But Warzone is a different story. Warzone, you definitely get put in higher average skill level lobbies. But the interesting thing is, a lot of these players that play like, you hear the term diamond lobby in Warzone a lot. That's like, very high skill level lobby.
Sure.
A lot of the players that are in those diamond lobbies are players that aren't actually good, like mechanically. They abuse meta. They abuse every little thing they can just to scrape by. And that's why they're in there, because they're just good enough to be irritating. Do you know what I mean?
They do all the right things, but they're not particularly good.
They use everything their little hands can get on. Stun grenades, insane controller aim assist, sniper rifles, thermite, someone set up a sentry gun in Warzone. I played with Fizz a couple days ago. If you know him, you should really get him on. He won't do face cam, but that's your next guest you should get on.
Okay.
Someone set up a sentry gun in a house, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, these people aren't good because when we got to them, we killed them, but they're just irritating enough to kill other people with sheer gadget and game knowledge abuse of the meta.
Hmm.
That's what really high level skill based matchmaking lobbies is. But then every once in a while, you'll see someone that is genuinely a good player.
Mhm.
Like, and you have trouble fighting. There's like an extended 1v1, right? You know, you can see he's very good at movement. You know, it's confusing. He's utilizing things very well. There's a difference between those players and everyone else in the lobby, right?
How do you know the difference?
It's immediately noticeable with the movement. Oh, you can tell them, you can tell a good player
Movement.
apart immediately with movement.
Mhm.
If you see someone that flies in at you, they know exactly where you are, they have very good intuition, they fly in, hit a jumping double bunny hop into a slide canceling like head glitch crouch spam, you're like, that guy knows what he's doing, right?
It felt good just hearing you say that, man.
That's what they do in Warzone. Like,
Yeah.
you can tell immediately a good player apart with their movement. That is evident in Battlefield 4 and in a lot of these games as well.
Can we talk about movement for a sec?
Yeah,
God
we
damn.
can.
I love that these military shooters, which I basically fled and abandoned from the early 2000s because I found them to be boring and brown and uninteresting.
Okay.
But I love seeing these games now have all these crazy ass movement things.
That's rare. That's a rare opinion to have.
Why is that?
Because it's a combination of things.
Okay.
Sometimes people, I think some of it is rooted in people not being good at the game and they simply don't want to deal with it. And another part of it is like, people just hate fun now. I feel like it's weird. Like, I play video games so I can double bunny hop, crouch, jump, slide cancel.
Hell yes.
And people hate that shit. It's bizarre to me. Like, I play video games because I can wall bounce and then grapple hook onto a skyscraper, and then I can shoot a helicopter out of the sky with a rocket launcher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And people hate that shit. There's some sort of bizarre... In the last 5 years, it's been really apparent. For whatever reason, some of the vast majority of the player bases simply just don't want to deal with that shit. And I don't know. You need to bring one of those people on. I don't know.
Anyone in the
what
chat
their
have
problem
a theory?
is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because for instance, Battlefield 4 has a robust movement system for sure.
Okay.
Nickel is in the chat right now. That's another person you should probably get on. Battlefield 4's movement system is very robust. You can crouch spam, you can air strafe, you can. There's a whole slew of things you can do in Battlefield 4, and you, like I said, you can tell a good player apart just by their movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen it in other games. I get what you're saying.
And I mean, maybe part of it is people don't want it in the game because they can't do it.
Yeah,
that's really what it is.
Perhaps it's one of the most gamey things about the multiplayer experience, because the kinds of crazy ass movement things you can do in these kinds of games are not. They don't imitate something that people do in real life.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like the kind of critique, like the Milsimmers, that kind of idea.
It's an invalid critique, in my opinion. It's just not like, oh, you can't do that in real life. It's like, okay, I can't respawn in real life. You want to use the real life argument?
Right.
Like, we can extend this to a multitude of things that don't make any fucking sense. Like, why is it okay for me to respawn? Like, I don't know. It's just, people use the real life argument way too much. It's so dumb to me.
Here's a crazy argument I just thought of. I'm going to try to be an apologist for the folks who don't like the movement, just so
Okay.
we can, test your point of view. 'Cause I basically agree with you. Like, I'm on the same side. I love that movement shit.
And
But
I just want to clarify something.
yeah,
I don't want Battlefield doesn't have to have wall running teleportation. I just
uh-huh,
want to be able. Can you give me decent strafe speed? Decent. I'm not talking anything crazy. I'm not talking Quake. Give me some decent strafe speed. Give me the ability to crouch in gunfights. Keep a slide in there, a little good slide, and a jump peek. You do those things. That is all. That's really it. That's all you want, and that's
okay.
fairly basic FPS movement.
Hmm. So you don't not crazy movement. You don't want people, bunny hopping and like tripping off of ramps, and you don't want people doing that kind of stuff. But you want some basic
I'll take
movement
bunny
first.
hopping if you can do for instance Modern Warfare. If you hit the correct timing,
Mhm.
it's quite difficult to do. If you hit the correct timing on a jump, you can bunny hop twice, I believe, while keeping momentum. Past that, you
Sure,
can't do it anymore.
makes
I'd be okay
sense.
with that because the timing is difficult to hit.
Hmm. And then there's a skill component, and it's
There's a
controllable.
skill gap in that, yes, because if you can learn it,
Yeah,
not everyone can do it.
right, right. So here's the crazy argument I'm going to make on behalf of people who don't like movement. I'm just going to see if this makes sense, and maybe it doesn't.
Okay.
Um, so you were arguing earlier about the sanctity of basic shooting mechanics, like center
Yeah.
screen lock, which I generally resonate with, and the fact that spread to recoil is a perversion of the way the shooting mechanics should work. Again, I basically sympathize, um, and that seems to me to be an appeal to the idea that shooting is a verb that people understand.
Mhm.
It's been tested and it's been developed over the last few decades, and it has transferability into and out of the game. And so, whether the shooting mechanics are measure up to an expectation of shooting is important. It's important to have that be similar to other kinds of shooting instances. And in that sense, I'm looking at this kind of difficulty with movement stuff and casting myself into the mindset of someone who wouldn't like it and saying, well, I want the games that I play to have things occur that are similar to other games or similar to other kinds of interactions I have. And this kind of weird, tweaky movement stuff doesn't look like anything that I would see if I was expecting a war-like experience. And this is probably more on people who want the feel, the role play of the experience, and less on the gamer side of things. But maybe at the end of the day, both sides are calling for a sort of consistency baseline, but with different values. And on the sweaty side, it's about consistency with games and game interactions. And on the, let's say, casual side, it's more about consistency with, I don't know, war interactions. I don't know. This doesn't sound like a great argument to me. What do you think?
Um, I think it's pretty simple. I think people that are complaining about movement generally just can't hit it, and they can't do it themselves.
Okay.
And I also think that they're exaggerating a
Hmm.
lot, a lot. Because
Exaggerating it.
I
How
go on
so?
Reddit,
Hmm.
I'll tell you, I go on Reddit and I slide once in a clip, right? Then twice in a clip. And then the comments come in. Oh my fucking! I hate when people slide spam. You know, I hate fighting against all these sweats that slide spam. It's like, what? Like, okay. And this is the same for Call of Duty. Like when I watch a really skilled player post a clip on the Call of Duty subreddits, it's like I see all these people come out of the woodwork and say, "Oh, I hate when all these sweaty people, jump around a corner 900 times with oh, hit a bunny hop into a slide cancel and like the movement speed is too fast." And it's just like, okay,
Hmm.
from a good player's perspective,
Hmm.
I barely see anyone do that. So
Hmm.
I would be amazed to play in your lobbies because I probably play the game more than the people that are commenting on those subreddits, and I don't see what they're talking about.
Introduce me to
You know
this
what I mean?
god. Yes.
Please, I would love. I think they're exaggerating,
Hmm.
and I also think they misunderstand some things because a lot of the times, so sometimes you'll see people say, like, oh, it's an exploit. Oh, it's an exploit. You're, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's not. You just don't understand how it works. Like, I see people say, uh, what's a great, I'm totally blanking here for no reason.
Exploits. Any help from chat?
It's like for instance, go on to Modern Warfare and they're saying slide canceling is an exploit. It's like, no, I'm canceling the slide. Like I started the movement and I am stopping it. That's not an exploit. That's a mechanic. That is the player's ability to do that. But in their mind, they're coming from, if you start the slide, you shouldn't be able to stop it until it stops on its own fruition.
Why would they think that?
I don't know. That's a different mindset. That like that person believes that slide, you should not be able to cancel it. Like if you start the slide, you should go through the full thing and then you should be able to do what you want afterwards.
Sure.
And I don't like that.
Right. It's almost like, well, the thing that occurs to me based on what you're describing is that there are certain kinds of, everyone comes to these games differently. Everyone's understanding of the way they work is different. And we all understand that these games are mutable, that they can change. There are patches. They're all live services at this point, right? And so we all feel like our opinions matter because we're all consumers of these live services that change over time. And the idea that we can look at a game and say, I don't think this part of the game is legit. It's almost like approaching a game. Like I try to compare it to my mind to games like chess, which haven't changed materially over time.
Yeah.
And people complaining, oh, I hate the what's the rule where pawns can jump diagonally? It's like en passant or something. I think is what it is.
I don't know. I've actually never played chess,
Sure.
which is like how, but whatever.
If you played it, I think you would probably, knowing your competitive streak, I think for you would be all or nothing. But like I look at, people don't have that take about chess. I don't think, like, there's not like this kind of argumentation about like what the game should be and what is like a valid tactic. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just,
people accept chess. They accept, okay, this is how chess works. Deal with it.
yeah, and
They don't do that in games.
so when someone takes the mechanics of the game and pushes them to their absolute limit, people don't see exploitation; they see brilliance.
Yeah,
And
like with Magnus Carlsen, right?
yeah, great example.
Yeah,
And it's really
that guy's
sad.
like a fucking god or something, isn't he? Like he's just unbelievable, like prodigy level. Yeah,
Yeah, he's a total fluke. He's a total outlier, and to do what he's done at his age is remarkable. But the Magnus Carlsens of Battlefield don't get the same respect.
I mean, that's just what it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we're seen as, I think good players, and you'll see this particularly. Well, actually, maybe I can find that post. Did anyone see the post on Battlefield 4 subreddit where it was like, play Battlefield 4, go 0-20 to an attack helicopter pilot, quit the game? Like, they quite literally see, I think, maybe not a majority of the community, but definitely, potentially a vocal minority of the community sees players like myself as a literal irritation and a problem that should just be erased. Like,
Right.
oh, I shouldn't have to deal with enders.
Right.
What? Like, I shouldn't have to deal with you sitting in a corner with a shotgun either. Like, but
Yeah. By the way, the same thing I see this same thing in the planet side scene all the time. Is this is actually a very common narrative, which I think is exaggerated. That one of the biggest problems with the new player experience for someone engaging with PlanetSide for the first time are the good salty veteran players who just know all the mechanics, push them to the limits, and just dumpster people.
Yeah, and that's, I think people nowadays are, there's a distinct lack of willingness people aren't willing to put in the effort to actually figure things out anymore. I feel like people really just want like to play the game and just to not.
Yeah.
I don't know what they expect even. Like they want to play the game and be protected in their own little space over there, and they don't want to put in the time or effort or like game knowledge into figuring out like how Wook or Zyros got so good at Planetside, or how
Mhm.
Nickel or Silk, got so good at what they do in Battlefield. It's like, I don't know. No one
Yeah.
wants to put in the time or effort. It's not like time or effort is lacking. Like there's nothing's changed there. You know what I mean? Like the funniest part to me is some of these people that bitch to me on Battlefield. They're like, "Oh, you must play like 5,000 hours, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, you're level
As an insult.
470. It's just like, yeah. But the funniest part is when you look at some of their accounts that are saying that, they have 5,000 hours.
Mhm.
And I have half of their hours. It's like,
Yeah. Not all player hours are not created equal. That's for sure. This is actually I love hearing what I think of as a young guy, because like, look, I was in high school around in 2000. I'm a fucking old dude, right? And for me, playing shooters, like when I started doing this with like original Half Life and Quake, on dial-up internet, that world of people who dealt with enough of the technological bullshit to get to the point where you were connecting and playing shooters people online. There were so many hurdles you had to jump 20 years ago compared to
mhm.
today in this experience, that the audience was really small. And really, if you made it down the funnel, all the way to the
I think the
funnel.
mindset was a lot different too. Because my dad, like when he played Quake or Unreal Tournament, he was not good. He was
Okay.
definitely not good, but he had fun in the game. He really did have fun, because part of the fun for him was moving around very fast and the cool weapons and
Mhm.
the maps, right? And just playing the game. That isn't the case nowadays, I feel like, with a lot of things, with a lot of people that play games. Like some of it is there's some people that definitely, carry that mindset on. Um and there's definitely people that exist nowadays that just don't say anything with that same mindset. But
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just like
I felt the same
I
frustration,
think
man.
forums. I think forums really enabled people to really just, because forums didn't exist back then. You know what I mean? Like
They were a lot smaller, a lot harder
they're a
to
lot
find.
smaller and a lot less bitchy. But now they're massive.
I don't know, man.
And
I think they're pretty bitchy back then too. They were just a lot smaller.
really,
That was my experience. I don't know. Like I spent many years like,
now it's tenfold though. I think for because I
well,
saw I saw a Reddit post the other day on Modern Warfare. The Modern Warfare Reddit post. It was like face. It was like face fact. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. It was like face the fact people exaggerate quote unquote camping to save their own ego, and I was like, what
someone.
like a gigantic generalization? Like what?
I mean, why do people post on Reddit ever
I
at
don't
all?
know.
Like, this is the thing. So when I started doing my podcast and all this shit, I stopped posting on Reddit because
Yeah.
I quickly realized that, I mean, I knew back then that it wasn't a good place to go to actually talk to people who wanted to discuss things. It's for something
Yeah.
else in some ways. It's for something different. It might be okay for whatever that thing is, but it's not for discussing things. Um, so I hear a post like that, and I ask myself, well, like, what was this person's last round of gaming like before they posted this? It's probably got more to do with who the person is and what they just experienced than with the quality of that opinion or whatever. Um, no, when I was first when I was first calling back to, a couple decades ago, when ancient people like me and me and your dad were playing these games, um, I it was just a much smaller scene, and there was a you can the it was almost like more demographically homogenous in terms of what people were how people would want to engage with those experiences of playing multiplayer shooters. But over time, as technology and culture has progressed, the scene of people who can engage with these games has blown the fuck up.
Blown up. Yes.
It is dramatically bigger.
And
It's
I feel like
the biggest media industry in the world.
Tigo in your chat had a good point. The personalities in the forums are vastly different now as well. I feel like either they're different now or there's more of troublesome personalities. You know what I mean? There's more assholes because there's just more people.
Well, I'm basing my impression of that on my anecdotal experience. And in my anecdotal experience, there was a higher overall percentage of assholes dwelling on those forums. And it was amplified by the back then. And this was amplified by the fact that everyone expected permanent anonymity from anything that they said. Because generally speaking, social accounts weren't linked anywhere, and you could just change a name, and then you were a new person saying whatever the hell you wanted. It's different. The stakes on things that you say are a lot higher today than they were back then, and that raises the bar on a lot of the baseline behavior. It does depend on where you go, right? So a lot of my experience is coming from a small gaming community of a few thousand people playing a game super hard for a few years. And organizing community tournaments and stuff like that, and the shit talking that went on there. But with this much bigger pool of people who are willing to engage in these games nowadays, it's like the kind of person who maybe wants to just play a game for feeling like they're in a war wouldn't go through the bullshit of figuring out how to deal with dial-up internet, how to install a game on a computer, how to go to the store, get a CD-ROM, this thing isn't working. How do I troubleshoot this? There's no google.com. How do you troubleshoot anything? You call up your uncle who works at a PC repair shop, and, you deal with a lot of horse shit. And so that kind of a person wouldn't be showing up in those scenes. But now, with technology and access being pushed to the point it is, it's opened the door to a lot of different kinds of people who want to have these experiences, and it's putting a ton of pressure on people with this kind of, in my opinion, more old school approach, which is like, I'm a fucking gamer, I'm gonna deal with the bullshit because the bullshit is part of the game, right? It's part of the game, you see, and if you want to master the game, you have to master the bullshit. That's just part of the experience. You accept the game you accept the terms of the experience as they're given to you, and say, I'm going to conquer this.
I think that translates into just the simple, just like how my dad was. Like, my dad, if he wanted to play a game, he jumped on the game, and that's what he did. He just played the game, and whatever happened.
Sure.
That's it.
Well, thanks, Dad, for introducing young Enders to shooters.
I remember when I was just starting out streaming, and I had 12 viewers, I think. And he was like, do you want to go out to a restaurant? And I was like, I have 12 viewers.
And he was like, that moment like?
He was like, okay, we're going to the restaurant. I was like, okay, so I went to the restaurant. But it was funny because I've always seen this as well. I knew that if I dedicated myself to streaming, I think I saw the niche in the community where I fit in. There was nobody that was potentially as good as I was with the personality that I have that was as mechanically interested and talked about it at the same time. Right. And I knew that if I streamed long enough, I think I would eventually, I would eventually get some form of recognition.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems to be working. Well, let's pivot
hopefully
that, brother.
It works.
The future for Enders. What's coming up for you, man?
Over the horizon right now is definitely just the 2042 beta. 2042 beta. I mean, I'm basically the past, I would say 8 or 9 months has been me just starting to get my YouTube channel rolling, learning all the ins and outs in that. I mean, I have it pretty down pat now. I know what I want to do come 2042. Biggest day though, in a long time is going to be the first day of that Battlefield 2042 beta, because it's going to literally be like first day at a new job type thing.
Yeah.
What am I going to be playing for the foreseeable future
Ooh.
in Battlefield 2042? What is it going to play like? Like, what is it? That's going to be a huge, huge stream for a lot of people. A lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna be fucking crazy. Seriously, like, I don't know what's gonna happen on the first day of the 2042 beta. I might be live for a very long time. Yeah, and then the obvious second biggest day would be release day, because that's when the new game finally comes out, and it's been a long time. Really
Yeah, it's
has.
been like 3 years, something like that.
It's been a long fucking time, and I cannot wait to get off of Battlefield 5. I feel like the only thing I really hope for 2042, can it be like 20% less irritating? That'd be great. Because Battlefield 5, because of the way it works, it just hits me right here, dude. Like, I disagree. I don't like that at all, you know? And I think if you speak to more people, like-minded like me, like Baronox or a plethora of the sweaty streamers, I think they'll share the same sentiment. Like, it people I've never seen mad before play Battlefield 5 and get mad because it hits that, like, there's something about that game that just rips it out of you. It's like, oh my god, this is so not fun. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, you another tweet that you fired out recently. It's so hard to give a shit anymore. Something with substance better release sooner than later. That feeling of
and that's just
having something substantial to engage with.
Yeah, Battlefield 5. It's so hard to, like, jump on stream and just give it my all on Battlefield 5 anymore. That's what I really meant by that. It's like, I've been at this for so long. Like, it's so hard for me to fucking care about this game anymore.
Yeah.
And I just want, it's so hard. Something with substance. Just like something that 2042, I think, will have more substance than BF5 did. Just something to learn, something to just play and, like, learn is really what I meant by that. And just fucking release the game. Like, we're all in that. Listen, everyone in chat is agreeing with that. Release the game.
I've seen a lot of people in the PlanetSide scene express a very similar sentiment.
Yeah.
It's just
a lot of the PlanetSide players are going to come over to 2042 for sure.
Yeah.
They already have. They already have started.
Yeah, man. It totally makes sense. Like, there's so much similarity there. But that sentiment of, like, feeling like your efforts are not being, your efforts feel almost a little bit wasted for just continuing to play the thing you've already mastered. You've already identified the places where it's just not given back to you where it should.
And the shitty part is people say, like, oh, just switch games. It's like, you can't. Like, people don't get it. And it irritates me sometimes.
Is that more of a
too.
streamer thing, or is it something else?
If you want to maintain success in your community and content creation, you have to hold on to what you already have until you get to a point to where you're big enough that you can play other games and it doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, and
because the shitty part is, the shitty part is viewer count and your community size. Like, if you're really serious about being successful, it does matter. I wish it didn't, because I would play Minecraft almost every day. Seriously. But the shitty part is, you kind of have to have that, like, ruthless. If you really want to be successful, you kind of have to have that ruthless, like, businessman outlook on it. Like, I've invested X amount of time into this. I've gotten to this point. I need to invest X amount more time into this in order for me to, like, branch out into other things and not totally destroy the progress that I've made.
Yeah.
When people say, just play. Yeah. Dude, just play a single player game. It's like, what? Like,
Yeah.
why are you here in my stream? Well, you play Battlefield. It's like, okay, guess who's not showing up to the Skyrim stream, right? You, the same person that told me to switch a game. I've seen it time and time again.
Right. Yeah, there's
And that's just how it is.
the
The
eternal
reality is,
Mhm.
a lot of people think that viewers watch for the streamers. And like they think that it's like 80-20. Like, oh, the viewers love the streamer. That's why they watch. No. No.
Mhm.
Perfect example is Ninja. Ninja was pulling 130,000 like average viewers on Fortnite.
Mhm.
Then he switched to Final Fantasy, he had like 10,000.
Mhm.
Like, okay, if that doesn't show if that contrast doesn't tell people like what it's about, then it's a reverse, right? 80 to 85% of people, it's dependent on the community and the streamer, right? But I would say between 80 to like 85% of people are there for the game. They really are. Then you have that 15% of people that are like the core, right?
Mhm.
It's about growing that core.
Yeah.
Because it's weird because you need like 5,000 viewers to have that 500 that'll watch you play anything. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, I do.
And that's the shitty reality.
Mhm. Yeah, I kind of feel that. Like in my own work, I range around quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I've observed that too. There are certain guests I talk to where there's a huge spike because I kind of have the energy from their community or from a certain game, which I know where I'm a little established in some way. Um, but then there's the core of people who are just here because they like hearing from me and like hearing the conversations that I have, and that core, those are the people you kind of you want to convert people into core members, and you want to serve the core because they're the ones who make it all work. Um, so yeah, understandably, for someone whose thing is streaming gameplay, shifting to another game is a risk. The payoff to that risk would
When you're
be
small,
okay. So is there a
when you're
threshold
growing,
that you have in
there's
mind?
I would say there's definitely a threshold.
Are you
So
are you
I would
eyeballing a threshold for yourself?
not particularly.
Okay.
I'll see what happens. I'm not done with Battlefield yet. Like I'm
Yeah.
still on like the total grind. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
and I genuinely do want to stream Battlefield. Play competitively in Battlefield. Like grow my community in Battlefield.
Yeah.
But I love Borderlands too. And honestly, like I think I'd be a great Borderland whatever next Borderlands game is. I'm probably gonna maybe start throwing
I can see
some
that.
other stuff
Yeah.
in there. Like I'll still play Battlefield, but maybe I'll do 7 days a week videos instead of 4 days a week. And it won't be that difficult because Borderlands content, for me, it'll be quite easy to make because I know what I know what I'm doing and I know what to do
You've
pretty
got it
much.
all thought out well ahead of time.
Yeah. No, yeah.
That seems to be the theme. Cool, man. Well, we're coming up on a couple hours, Anders. I want to respect your time. Do you want to give folks, shout yourself out and tell everyone who's listening to this now and later where to find you?
I think almost everyone here already knows where to find me. Honestly, I ping my Discord, but if anyone here is new and listening to this, I somehow got twitch.tv/enders. So that's where I stream every single day
Mhm.
at the same time. I've done so for over 3 years now.
Nice.
Consistency is a huge thing in streaming too. So twitch.tv/enders, ENDERS. Come Battlefield 2042, I'll push my stream times back 3 hours, so I'll be going live earlier. To just make it easier to watch for European viewers and anyone else. So probably 3 p.m. EST 2042. I have a Discord, YouTube channel, Enders FPS. You can probably just Google Enders BF5. I'll come right up.
Word.
Just hit. I think we're almost at I hit 10.7K subs on YouTube today, so that was pretty awesome.
Crossing 10K. Nice.
Yeah. I started YouTube way too late. Way too late. Like, oh my god, way too late. But whatever. It doesn't matter. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. And the
If you
big
watch
moment,
Battlefield, you'll definitely see me in the next game.
and yeah, the big event on the horizon is Battlefield 2042, closed the beta coming up, where you'll be
Yeah.
meeting your new employer, and and then of course the big release coming up in about a month and a half. So we'll be looking out for
Oh yeah.
that. As for me, if you're watching this, I'm Deeg. I like talking to people and talking about gamers and the things that they face in life and all the kinds of interactions there are. I'm really
Yeah, I
interested.
think you're good at it, you know?
Thank you,
I think
brother.
if you want to reach out to anyone larger, you know, I'll vouch if I know them mutually. You know, I think this is a fun time, and
The main thing that's
just keep
important to
doing it.
me, like the main thing that's important to me when I sit down to do this, I have a whole bunch of things I'm curious about, of course, but the main thing I care about is that the person I'm talking with in the chat has fun. So
Yeah,
if
no,
you're enjoying
the
yourself,
chat.
chat, you having a good time too? I
I'd
certainly
say so.
hope
Yeah.
so. They've been pretty active. And I'm just a curious dude. I'm not satisfied with the way that gamers talk to each other and the way we deal with problems in our industry. I think we can raise the bar on it, and I'm trying to do that socially. So here we are.
Mhm.
And I'm Deeg Thoughts everywhere. A stupid pun on deep thoughts. I apologize for that, but it's what I could get.
There it
And
is. I mean, it's not bad.
and next week, I'm actually going to be interviewing a composer for a real pace change. Composer for video games like Guild Wars 2.
Oh, really?
He did the music for Crucible, I think. He worked on Rock Band. It's going to be an interesting
That's pretty
conversation.
badass.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's going to be a different and fun kind of challenge for me. But it's going to be good shit. And anyway, Enders, thanks, brother. This is a lot of fun. I appreciate talking about shooters and sweat and streaming, everything that goes into it.
No problem.
So thanks, chat, for hanging out, and thanks everyone watching this after the fact. Love y'all, and I will catch you on the next one.